The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. Whether you're a veteran voice actor, just starting out, or don't even know how to set a level, we're here to help you avoid the pitfalls along your voiceover path to success. The VO Meter is brought to you by Global Voice Acting Academy, Fidalgo, JMC Demos, Studio Bricks, Voice Actor Websites, and Roswell Pro Audio. The VO Meter is produced in part using Source Connect made by source-elements.com. And now your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean David.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 114 of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress. We have longtime friend of the show, and we think now the most tenured guest or the most featured guest in the VO Strategist, Tom Dheere. So you hear that coming up shortly, right after.
VoiceOver Extra brings you the VO Meter reference levels. Seriously, guys, that's the best you could come up with? Hey, it's your show.
So, Paul, what's been going on in your VO world lately?
First of all, a little non-VO stuff, just because it's fun sometimes to talk about other stuff. I just bought a scooter, a little 50cc. Well, I shouldn't even say I bought. I had an electric bike, which I've talked about over the last couple of years, having lots of e-bikes. But I got the bug again for a gas-powered scooter, so I traded straight up on Facebook Marketplace someone who wanted an e-bike for their daughter to go to college, and I took her scooter, which is a 50cc Kimco People. The cc is a cubic centimeters. It's the size of the engine displacement. And in most states in the U.S., if you have under 50 cc's or cubic centimeters, you don't need a special motorcycle license. I happen to have a motorcycle license. I've had bigger bikes in the past, but in this case, it makes it easier to register. Insurance is cheaper, and you don't even need a license plate. So traded that, and I took it out for the first time yesterday, and I got the bug-tooth grin that every motorcycle or fast e-bike rider knows, where you're smiling ear to ear, and the idea is you catch bugs in your teeth because you're so happy as you're riding along. So a lot of fun. I don't know if it'll last, because just like with microphones, I tend to just flip stuff in all aspects of my life. But for now, it's pretty cool.
You got a problem, man.
It's a hobby. It's interesting to me.
It is. No, it's fine. I mean, like, honestly, a lot of people know, like, I'm an action figure collector and stuff like that, and we all have our subsets. Like, I'm really bad at selling what I have. I know some people make a living of it and just have, like, a rotating collection, like, kind of like you do with your... But for me, I'm just like, no, I want to hold on to these things I've had since high school for some reason. Like, so, to each their own. Yeah. I have gotten better about selling gear, though. I only have, like, backups and stuff like that.
That can be a real issue with marriages, which you might find out. So, like, my wife's, I wouldn't say she's a hoarder, but we do have a lot of old stuff, especially toys. Like, we have all the toys from when the kids were babies. It's just shoved in the basement in the corner of the playroom, and I just want to purge stuff. And often she's, like, literally dragging me in from the garage saying, "Don't take that to the trash. What are you doing? That's Anna's baby toy." And I'd be like, come on. She hasn't touched this in 17 years. She's 20 years old.
It happens. Yeah. I mean, but what I recommend, because, like, I had to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff when I was moving into the new house and getting rid of my stuff and getting rid of my brother's family stuff that they didn't want anymore, especially when it's like things have gone unused for years like that. And if you want to save the memories, take pictures of it, right? Like, I mean, I think it's just as, like, if you're going for that nostalgic element, you'll get similar vibes if you see an image as, like, actually holding the thing. And, of course, like, I don't know, it can help deal with, like, this anxiety and stress that comes with just having too much stuff. So highly recommend regular purges.
It's the Marie Kondo effect.
The Marie Kondo effect,
yes. If it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it, yeah. I do get stressed, actually. Like, there's some parts of the garage or the attic where when we were getting together and married and moved in together, we just shoved a bunch of stuff. And if I go in there, sometimes I'll just lose it, and I'll literally have, like, a stress reaction to it. And that's when I start pulling stuff out and just purging. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad.
That's right. Rip the Band-Aid off, but don't do it too impulsively.
I don't even know how to
do some seller's remorse. I'm like, no, why did I do that? And then I might rebuy it or something.
I don't even know how to give advice on this, but hold on to stuff that you think might be valuable. Like, for instance, I grew up in the 70s, and I had every original Star Wars toy you could think of that my parents got me. The big Millennium Falcon.
Oh, my God.
And my mom just threw it all away. I mean, it was probably well worn, but even well worn, I think something that I had in 1976 would probably be worth a lot of money right now.
It's a dangerous road to go down, to be honest, because like I said, I'm a collector. I've held on to stuff that like didn't accrue in value, and like I've sold and gotten rid of things that like I had a whole I used to have this toy chest, this He-Man Skeletor toy chest that was like hand painted, sold it for like less than $100, and then a couple years later I'm seeing people selling it at cons for like $800. You know, so it's like it's really difficult, but also from my standpoint that was important for me to like, I know, it's weird. It's like, I want to be an adult collector and I want to buy new shit, so I need to get rid of the old stuff I had from when I was a kid. It was a weird phase I was going through at the time. But it can be so difficult to predict what's going to accrue in value, and then it takes like 10, 20, 30 years before that really takes off. And then that's all that time that you could actually be enjoying the thing, like, you know, that your kids could play with it. And I've never really ascribed to the whole, like, buy two, open one, save the other. So it's just like, I don't know, everyone's got their own way that they enjoy the hobby or whatever they collect. But again, I feel like, you know what they say, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's so hard to predict this stuff. Toy collecting is not a good investment in general. It's usually at a loss.
I've been pretty lucky with vehicles, so hopefully this scooter will serve me well for the next summer, and then if not, I'll be able to do something else with it.
I think it's a very healthy non-attachment that you have with items. Like, I don't know what my problem is. But
to each their own. So moving on to actual work-related stuff, I wrapped up a book today with Twin Flame Studios called Big Freaking Change, How to Gain Confidence by Stepping Out Before You Are Ready by Kara Poppett. So the initial recording is done. We're waiting for pickups, and we'll get that out hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's a book about how to fight imposter syndrome. And what we see a lot in the voiceover industry is people over-preparing and studying and never actually doing the damn thing. So this is about learning that you gain the confidence by doing. So even if you feel like you're not ready, whatever your vocation is, get out there and start working towards the next step, and then your brain and your body will catch up. And then by the time you achieve the goal you're searching for, you realize you actually got ready by doing it instead of over-analyzing and prepping.
That's really prescient things to think about, because like, as I've mentioned before, like online, either social media or people reaching out to me directly having questions about getting started in VO, there's a lot of analysis paralysis and over-analysis. And I'm like, there are so many decent resources, whether it's coaches or online schools or books or podcasts, that people just need to start, you know? And they're so worried about failure and stuff like that. But like, I spent my whole first year just reading about this stuff, you know, for free or very little expense. So it's like there's stuff you can do right now while you save for the inevitable investment you should make in your training and equipment and all that stuff. But it's just like, I see it all the time. People are so risk averse right now and so afraid of the potential of failure or this not taking off that I'm like, look, this is going to take like 2 years at least before you make any kind of traction. So you have to be patient and you have to be comfortable with the potential that this doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, but at some point you have to actually do the thing. And as I was listening to this woman, Kara, talk about her experiences as a dancer, because she was a professional dancer and then started teaching dancing, how she sort of got some of her big breaks was just by overcoming that fear and going out on the auditions and doing the jobs before she even felt like she was ready. And I identified so much with that because it coalesces very well with my live announcing because, as I talked about in our recent seminar, which we'll get to in a second, I was terrified the first couple of times I ever got on the mic. And I knew I was terrible, but I pushed through it and knew that the experience would eventually get me to where I wanted to go. I think I talked about having this conversation with my wife where I was doing all these jobs for $50 an hour or $50 an event for an entire game. And Jen, my wife, was saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But it's because I knew that I needed the chops to build up and that experience would lead to better things in the future. And it has. So at some point, you have to stop the paralysis by analysis.
It was
and
your
actually
trial by
do
fire.
the thing. So yeah, and I see it all the time in the voiceover groups that we participate in, and people online saying, I don't know if I'm ready. I've been studying for 3 years with so-and-so, and I don't know if I should do that audition. You just got to do it at some point.
And what I love too is like your comfort with like the stage of learning that we call conscious incompetence. You're aware that you suck, basically. But you're comfortable with that. And so many people, like whether it's pursuing a creative endeavor like voice acting or a YouTube channel or whatever your potential interest is, you have to be comfortable with the sucking. I remember Bo Weaver, voice talent, did a foreword for, I think, the art of voice acting. And he talked about he was taking an illustrator's class, and he's like, start drawing now, because the first 10,000 drawings you do are gonna suck, right? So it's just like, you can't shortcut that learning process, and you just have to be comfortable with imperfection.
You can apply it to so many things. Engine repair. I didn't know anything about cars or motorcycles or e-bikes a couple of years ago, but I started watching some YouTube videos, did some research online, and now I replaced a battery in my car. I know how to wire up a motor and a battery in a scooter. I'm right now looking over the carburetor in this scooter because it's not running exactly as I want it to, so I'm going to figure that out. Cooking. I cook a lot, but in the beginning I was awful. I think the first meal I ever cooked by myself was in college, and I gave food poisoning to myself and all my roommates because I didn't cook the chicken enough when I was making some chicken fajitas. But I learned, and none of us died. And now it's something I make at least once a week, and everybody loves it. So whatever you're applying it to, you need that practice time. What do they say, 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything? You just need to start doing it because eventually you'll run out of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, that's that audiobook. That should be out
about?
soon. And on the live announcing side, wrapped up basketball season, although just as we were about to get on here, someone was asking me to do a conference tournament this weekend. March Madness is upon us if you're a college basketball fan. So I'm pretty excited about that just to watch as a fan. But I should be pretty much done with basketball. But I'm in full swing with lacrosse. And then the one school I work for, Stevenson University, just asked me to do their football team next year. So it'll be the first time I'm announcing college football, and I'm pretty excited about that. And then finally on the live announcing front, I just hosted, a couple of weeks ago, a webinar for the Global Voice Acting Academy, GVAA. Thank you for your continued sponsorship on live sports announcing. There was a moderator there that was helping me, Mr. Sean Daly. So thank you for your assistance there.
Hey.
And I think it went pretty well. We had some
My
participants that said they really were looking to do this. The first question I asked the participants was, what's your favorite sports team? Because my thought was, if they said something that was non-existent, like, I don't know, the Goat Pigs or the Buck Rogerses, or they didn't have any answer, then they probably were not a sports fan. And while that's not an absolute requirement for this job, for live announcing sports, it does help a lot. The people that answered, they said their NFL team was their biggest. They were the biggest fans, though, so I knew right away they would be into it, and they came away with a lot of questions, the audience, and I think they got a lot out of it.
Excellent. No, I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, and it gave me a newfound appreciation for everything you do, so it was fun.
Thank you, and once again, thanks for your help, and thanks to the Global Voice Acting Academy for letting me participate. So that's it for me, I think. What's going on in your VO world?
Well, what started off is, I don't know, it's been an interesting month. Like we were talking last month, how kind of the beginning of the year is a bit of a drop-off period, a quieter period compared to some other ones. So it was quiet for me, but meanwhile, I was using that time to, I taught an in-person class in Seattle, my VoiceOver 101 class through Rekindle School. And that was a lot of fun.
That? Wow.
We had kind of a... Oh, yeah. No,
it's been like 5 years now, right?
It has. Yeah, we started like right when the pandemic happened, or like at the end of 2019. So yeah, still doing that. We've tried a number of different formats. We've done in person, we've done online, and I think we exhausted the request for online for a while. People really, I even got questioned at the workshop, is online coaching as good as in person? I was like, yes, but like I can understand wanting to get out and wanting to meet people and interact and stuff like that. And honestly, it is fun. Like I get a lot of joy out of working with people in person, and like I feed off of the energy and enthusiasm. But anyway, so that was a lot of fun. Had about 9 students that time. We worked together for a couple hours, answered all the questions, led people through a bunch of different scripts and talking about the differences between commercial and character work and audiobook narration based on what they wanted to do. A lot of people had no aspirations for professional work, but I kind of geared it towards that. So if people want to pursue it, they can, right? Or at least they have some fundamental knowledge that they could start with. So that was a lot of fun. Like I said, we led the sports announcer workshop together. I worked on registration this weekend for GVAA. We're up to 40 workouts a month, which is nuts.
Wow.
I don't know if any other online school offers that many educational opportunities, but we do. So I was working on that. Let's see. I kind of finished up some... oh God, I had so many pickups for a recent book I did because it was filled with Latin and Native American terms. It was like a 300-page book. We had like 70 pickups. I was not a fan, but we got through them all. So finally that one is in the can. And luckily the studio liked working with me so much, they asked me to do 2 new ones. So
very cool.
Pretty sure I can't talk about those yet, but I will when I get the permission to. So that's happening. I got a request to do. So this was really funny, like kind of personal stuff. Like a long time ago, like last Christmas, my wife got me some like pool passes to go to the pool that she works at. And because we both used to like swim and be on swim team and do water aerobics and all that stuff. So I've been trying to use them up before they expire. And so I was visiting her and doing all that and working out like 3 or 4 times a week. And then on top of that, she was applying for another job, for a teaching job. So I was kind of like upping my house husbandly duties and like cooking or getting dinner and picking up the chore slack and all that stuff. So I was feeling pretty good about myself until this week. And then I had, over the last 4 days, I had a migraine 3 days, almost in a row. And for those who don't know, a migraine is I guess it's a neurological condition where you have the most debilitating headache you can ever imagine. And usually, like, you're incredibly sensitive to lights and sounds and touch, all that stuff. And we still don't know why, exactly what they are or why they happen, but essentially it's because of it's your body's response to overstimulation or overextension, right? So whether I'm dehydrated, I didn't eat enough food, my body's too sore, my allergies are kicking in. So all that stuff kind of teamed up against me and like laid me low for a couple of days. So luckily, it was kind of a quieter day. This all happened earlier this week. But then when I came to my inbox today, it was like, hey, we got all these auditions for you. We got 2 new books for you. Can you do these pickups from a few months ago? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's true what they say. Like, if you want work, make yourself unavailable.
Jesus, rough.
So that was interesting. And it just got me thinking about, like, work-life balance because, like, and this started sort of with the workshop that I did a few weeks ago because I was telling people one of the sort of the jump-off points for my success in voiceover, I was working like 12, 14-hour days. I was working at my teaching job in Japan from like 9 to 3, and then I'd come home, I'd eat something, I'd take a nap, I'd wake up at like 10 p.m. and record till about 4 a.m. because it was quiet, and then I'd go to sleep for a couple hours, and then I'd work again. So naturally, and I only did this for a few months because I was moving from Japan back to the States, and I really wanted some work available when I moved back, but I wouldn't recommend doing that again. Certainly not now. And it just got me to think about, like, there's all these things we should be doing with our time, trying to exercise, trying to eat well, trying to support our spouse, trying to have enough money to pay for bills, whether you're working one or multiple jobs, all that stuff. So I think it's just really important to be aware of all that stuff and be flexible and graceful with yourself if you need to drop one of those plates for a little while. So today I have the joyous task of playing catch up and doing all the auditions that are still available and making sure that those pickups are done and all that stuff. And like just trying not to feel like I'm about to throw up. So that's what I've been up to lately, is finding that delicate work-life balance.
Yeah, that's rough. And I hear you about the migraines. I don't know if I ever actually had a migraine, but I get headaches a lot, and I'm not sure, like I said, if they fit in that classic migraine pattern, but I've definitely all my life had headaches where I had to lay down for hours and couldn't even turn on lights. So it sounds like a migraine to me, and it sucks. It's not fun at all.
Yeah, some people get them, like I said, if they just overextend themselves or if they're dehydrated. A lot of people, usually tension headaches can set them off. Like I said, if you're not a regular swimmer, nothing gets all of those muscles tight and sore like a swim workout, right? Muscles you didn't even know you had. So, and of course, since I'm doing a lot of like chest and shoulder pulling with the strokes, that pulls on your neck, which pulls on your face. All that stuff. But it doesn't help that what we do for this job involves a lot of screen time, right? Either in a dark booth, which isn't great for your eyes. I should probably invest in some LED strip, or at a desk, right? And I try to work with this. I have a sit-stand desk. I have a very comfortable office chair, but still, if you spend hours doing this stuff, like you can have all sorts of physical issues, right? Whether it's simply tension headaches, eye strain, hand and wrist problems like tendinitis, elbow pain, wrist pain, all that stuff. So it's just, and especially if you have another job that's like in IT or you're already spending a lot of time at the computer, again, just be mindful of your body and stand up every hour. Go outside and get some fresh air for 10 minutes if you can. So again, it's just, the older I get, the more I'm like, yes, this dream is important, but I'm not going to sacrifice my health for it anymore.
Yeah, it makes sense. My back just seized up about 2 hours ago. And I think it's because I got a new phone, which I'll talk about in a second, and questionable gear purchases. But like all day yesterday, I was looking down at the phone with my neck bent at like a 30-degree angle, trying to set it up.
That's a bad one, for sure.
Yeah, so then just sitting down in the couch a couple of hours ago, my back completely seized. I had to stand up and straighten it out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it happens. Well, anyway, moving on, let's talk about some questionable gear purchases.
Questionable gear purchase.
So I'll start right off the bat. I just mentioned I got a new phone. I finally broke down and got an iPhone after years of fighting the power and hanging on to my Android. And it's an older one because that's what I do. I got a refurbished iPhone 11 Pro Max just to make sure that that's something I can handle and like before I maybe move on to a new one. But so far, so good. It's taken me a while to get back in the groove and make sure all my apps are where I need them to be and all the notifications are working. But I think after, like I said, many hours of staring down, I think I finally got it settled. I was actually texting you from the computer, which is the main reason I was holding out.
Isn't that
Android.
cool?
Yeah. Well, Android's had that for like 10 years, and it was the main reason I was holding on to it because I could use Google Voice to text and call from my computer, and I would actually use that for phone patches too. And once I finally remembered or figured out that you could do that from the desktop with Mac and iOS, it's the same thing. So the main reason I was holding on to Android, I didn't really need to. So the rest of my family has iPhones. They've been yelling at me for years. So now I joined the flock, and I have all iOS stuff. I got the iPhone, the iPad, and the MacBook Pro. All in on Apple right now.
Excellent. And that's, I mean, if you're in the system, that's what I recommend. But if you've got a Mac, a desktop, and a laptop, and an iPad, might as well have an iPhone.
Yeah, and so far so good. I'm enjoying being able to FaceTime my mom and kids, and I could do that from my computer, but I always had to be at the computer, which was sometimes a pain in the neck. But I really like that you can use your studio equipment to make calls. So you just do a FaceTime audio call, as long as your phone is connected, I can make calls with my studio microphone and receive them too, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
So do you have any questionable gear purchases this month, Sean?
No, I'm still holding out. You'll be proud of me, even though I've got like a Mac Mini waiting in my cart right now. But
You've been shopping for that for a long time.
I mean, oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just waiting until pretty much until the next operating system because I like to be one behind. And some people have reported issues with various things like Source Connect and stuff like that. So
yeah, I saw that.
I'm usually not an early adopter if I can help it. And if I am, it's for something that's non-essential. But I don't know. I will say that today, when we recorded this March 6th, Apple finally released their latest iteration of the M4 MacBook Airs, as well as the new iPads and the Mac Studio. So all of these are pieces of gear that I might recommend for a voiceover talent. But I'm personally looking at the MacBook Airs because I've been a longtime fan. I used to have a bunch of burly, 15-inch MacBook Pros, and then I finally upgraded backing up a little bit. My first Apple computer was actually a MacBook Air, and I loved it. I got it when I first moved to Japan. It was a good travel companion. And then as I started doing more VO, I started getting the MacBook Pros for the extra power. But then I wasn't a huge fan of the weight or the fan noise and all that stuff. So finally, when the M1 MacBook Airs came out, I jumped on it. And then I got the Mac Mini as well, because I wanted to move to a desktop solution and free up some space on my desk. Mm-hmm. So both of these machines have been working excellently for the last almost 5 years. And honestly, the Mac Mini is just now starting to slow down. So I'm trying to kind of not hedge my bets, but I'm just it's not broken, So it's I don't need to replace it, but I do have my over-the-hill birthday next year, so I'm probably going to upgrade both machines, just cuts.
There you go.
So that wraps up our questionable gear purchases. We'll be back with good buddy Tom Dheere after these messages.
Walgreens, because it's flu season, and you live in a place with doorknobs and handrails and, people.
We tried booking a vacation rental on one of those other websites. They don't always tell you everything.
The stars take it to the red carpet.
We are back live from the red carpet.
California leads the way for change in America, and so does Kamala Harris.
Rated M for mature. Claire Redfield.
And who exactly are you?
So, yeah, what hashtag should I use to describe a grown man in a tuxedo wrestling a goat?
And prior to 1933, many of them belonged to a variety of political parties that were now outlawed in Germany.
This is the story of how Q got curly. Quinn was crazy about curls. Curly fries, curly straws, curly-haired dogs.
Hey, Jay Michael here. Thanks for listening to the VO Meter podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you're looking for a great demo like the ones you just heard, check out jmcdemos.com for more information.
Hey everyone, Studio Bricks designs and creates the highest performing portable sound isolation booths. Our professionally perfected acoustics enhances your performance and takes your recordings to their maximum quality from your home studio. Forget about managing noise conflicts with your neighbors and family. Pursue your passion for voiceover on your own time and on your own terms.
In these modern times, every business needs a website. When you need a website for your voice acting business, there's only one place to go. Like the name says, voiceactorwebsites.com. Their experience in this niche webmaster market gives them the ability to quickly and easily get you from concept to live online in a much shorter time. When you contact voiceactorwebsites.com, their team of experts and designers really get to know you and what your needs are. They work with you to highlight what you do. Then they create an easily navigable website for your potential clients to get the big picture of who you are and how your voice is the one for them. Plus, VoiceActorWebsites.com has other great resources, like their practice script library and other resources to help your voiceover career flourish. Don't try it yourself. Go with the pros. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the interview portion of this episode of the VO Meter. Our guest today is a longtime friend of the podcast and returning guest, Tom Dheere. He's a voice talent who's narrated thousands of projects across nearly every genre, including commercials, video games, cartoons, explainers, corporate narration, e-learning, medical narration, audiobooks, and so much more. He doesn't offer flashy bells and whistles, but instead focuses on delivering high-quality voiceover at affordable rates. His home studio offers digital connections for online recording and professional equipment for a truly great sound. So please join us in welcoming our guest, Tom Dheere. How's it going, Tom?
It's going good. Thanks for having me back, man.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it was my idea. So.
I know it was. He actually contacted us like, hey, it's been a while. So when can I be on? And we're like, now?
Those are my favorite guests because it requires no work from my end.
Absolutely.
But Tom, since you have been on before, and as Sean mentioned, I would consider you a friend of the show. We just crossed over our 8th year, and in lieu of doing the classic, hey, how did you get started? What was your first gig type of thing, we thought we'd use this time to talk about the state of the industry, how it may have changed since Sean and I got in, and maybe since you got in, and where you think the future might be, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
So first of all, offline, we were talking about the podcast. You were talking about your list of podcasts that you've been a guest on. You said some of them are no longer in existence or have gone by the wayside?
Yeah, I mean, as the VO strategist, voiceover business and marketing consultant, I'm always trying to make appearances at conferences and schedule workshops and do that. And as part of that direct marketing strategy, I reach out to podcasts I've been a guest on and say, hey, would you like to have me back? And sometimes they beat me to it, which is great, but sometimes, I do it too. So, if you go to vostrategist.com and you click on the About section, which is a list of appearances, it's got like a linked graphic of all the podcasts that I've appeared on. It's been dozens and dozens of them over the past, 10 years or so. And as I was clicking on them, a lot of them were going nowhere or having a, sorry, we don't do this anymore. And I just thought that was very interesting as to why so many of these podcasts have just vanished. And I'm guessing it's because, maybe they ran out of time. Maybe they ran out of money to upkeep. Maybe it wasn't monetizing and they were trying to monetize the podcast. Maybe they've left the voiceover business because they couldn't cut it or there was some other, life situation going on. But yeah, you guys should be proud of yourselves for sticking around so long.
Thanks. I think we just don't know any better. But
yeah, there is something to be said for that. I that's one of the reasons I've been a successful voice actor because I was too stupid to quit.
Yeah, same thing with this podcast. We never planned to make money. We never really have. Well, I think we've made maybe if the CPA, the IRS is listening, or my CPA, who also happens to be my wife, we've made maybe like $11 in the 8 years.
We do have these some bagels and produce out of it too.
We do have these
Bazooka
ads.
Joe bubblegum is on you.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. Let's talk about people exiting the business or getting into the business, because I've definitely seen that. And we have good friends that used to be in our accountability group that are just no longer doing the job at all. How many people do you think get into the business and either fizzle out or have decided it's not for them? And do you think that number is increasing or decreasing?
It depends on when. Now, when I decided I wanted to be a voice actor in, 1994, there was no pay-to-play sites. There was no home recording. There was no social media. So knowing that voiceover as an industry or as a vocation existed was largely not a secret. It was just unknown to the vast majority of people. So when I started to do it and I wanted to do it full time, I didn't know any full-time voice actors, and I was living outside of New York City, and it was like, you make your cold calls and you send your cassette tape demo and, hope that they have a project for you sometime in the future. So I don't even know if there was much of a turnover. It was more of like a side hustle for a lot of film and TV and theater actors. Then, 20 years ago when Voices.com and Voice123 came around, home recording started to become more affordable. That started to open the door. Then social media showed up in the mid-aughts with, Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook. And that opened the door even more. Then smartphones came around. I'm sure in its own way, it opened the door even more. And then when COVID hit, we just got completely flooded with aspiring voice actors, both TV, film, and theater actors whose careers just literally vanished overnight and were desperate to, find any way to make money, or people who got laid off or quit or fired or decided they wanted to change and they wanted to give voiceover a shot. Now that we're on the other side of all of that stuff, I don't know about you guys, but I've been seeing more and more people post in the voiceover Facebook groups that they're selling all of their stuff.
I have
noticed
been
that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people that I know pretty well that were doing it before the pandemic.
Yeah. So COVID made a huge amount of people come to the industry. I'm sure a handful of them became successful, or at least enough to sustain themselves, or had enough promise to keep going. But I'm sure a lot of people have gone back to their day job or just trying something else. So as you can see, it ebbs and flows. And now we're in the midst of AI doing, whatever it is doing. But we all know that it is causing the voiceover industry to contract. Whether the contraction is causing people to be forced out of the voiceover industry or to decide not to even give it a shot, I mean, there are no metrics for that. One thing I do know is that every person who has ever watched a cartoon or played a video game is trying to be a cartoon and video game voice actor right now. And I work through a lot of voiceover schools and groups and organizations, and like when I'm on a Zoom with them, all of them have their Funko Pops and Yu-Gi-Oh posters in the back. This is they want to be in all the stuff that they have played and watched their whole lives.
Yeah.
And you can't see me hiding my figure collection behind my back. So
But Sean, own it, dude. Be proud of it. You know what I mean?
And I mean, I can totally relate to this too. And I think so many of these, like the huge drop off or the contraction, is because people are finally like realizing the misconceptions that they have about how competitive this business is, how large it really is, and how some of the barriers or the required obstacles and benchmarks you need to meet in order to really get those aspirational goals of top tier animation and video games. Like, I mean, I see it all online, I see it everywhere on social media. It's like, how do I get started without paying anything? Like, what's the best $100 mic? And I'm like, if you're too afraid to invest in yourself, you've already failed. Like,
I agree 100%. Everybody thinks that, nobody thinks that they can just pick up a violin without practicing and start playing at concert level.
Mm-hmm.
But every knucklehead with a deep voice thinks that they can buy a $5 mic with no training and just dive right in because their friends told them that they have a good or interesting voice. I mean, I own an interesting pen, but it doesn't make me an author. I own a wrench, but it doesn't make me a plumber. So having an interesting voice does not make you an effective voiceover business. And, the whole American Idol chorus line, God, I hope I get it, audition and pray. If you're not a star, you're a loser mentality, permeates the outside world. That's just what they perceive it to be. And then they come in and often get very quickly disillusioned. Like, for example, I've been on Reddit a lot lately.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's been interesting. And there's a lot of voiceover related subreddits. And the vast majority of posts are, I have no money. I have no training. I've never done voice acting before. How can I make money doing it right now? And the answer is you can't. You need to find out if you have talent. You need to develop your storytelling skills. You need to develop your voiceover 101 skills. You need to develop your genre awareness and proficiency skills. And then you need to record a demo with a good, ethical, professional coach. You need to build a website. You need to build a home recording studio. You need to write a grown-up business plan. And then you need to be patient. And nobody seems interested in any of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that because part of the reason I wanted to have this discussion is because, like I said, we started this 8 years ago, and Sean and I at that point were very much bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, contributing all the time on the Facebook groups and social media. And now I feel like the old man shaking his fist at the kids on his lawn because I don't want to contribute to anything I see on social media. So I'm wondering, is it getting worse, or am I just old and crotchety?
Well, two things could be true at the same time.
True.
So you can be old and crotchety and things can be getting worse. See, but I don't know what worse means. I don't know what I would have to get my arms around what exactly the context of that is.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of my early journey. Like, I would go on the groups and make stupid comments and then take it when someone like you or Doug Turkel or Melissa Exelberth would tell me I was a moron. I would take it to heart and say, yeah, you're right. That was really stupid. I need to rethink my approach. But now I feel like people are just ignoring any good advice at all.
I was going to say, I see it daily now. Like, how do I get in? What's the best mic? How do I get in? And it's just like, I feel like when we started, at least it's certainly true of us, but like we are a little bit more self-motivated. And like now we just we put our trajectory in the hands of strangers, I don't see a lot of people taking initiative and, like I said, being willing to take a chance and invest in themselves. And people just assume that someone's going to discover them and they're going to do all the work for them. But no, this is more work than a 9 to 5. Let's be honest. It's more work than a 9 to 5, and there's no guarantee of stability or success. That's really hard to sell. And this is from somebody who works for an online voice acting school. But I'm trying to tell people, because I'm like, look, if this is something you're passionate about, give it a shot, but just be mindful of what it really takes.
Here's the thing about that. And I'm not going to finger wag any generation or try to puff up, my own generation, but younger people have a different relationship with technology, which, makes perfect sense. Older generations than us have a different relationship with technology. And when you're on your phone all day scrolling and you see YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok influencers recommending shoes and smartphones and comparing, this to that, or playing a video game for 12 hours straight, and they're getting millions of hits and millions of followers, and, Mr. Beast, creates a restaurant and has his own Netflix show. And then you see all these voice actors doing all this fun stuff, and they know that they can buy a microphone and give it a shot. They're all like, I can do that. That seems easy. So all of these social media influencers and just the proliferation of technology and content of voice actors, successful voice actors doing their thing, I think it creates a false perception, because those YouTube influencers that are, sharing makeup tips or, how to make the perfect chocolate cake, these people are working extraordinarily hard over an extremely long period of time. And the first 50 videos they made were crap.
Yeah.
Just like the first voiceover auditions that we all did were crap. So, because I'm trying to stay away from the word entitled, because I don't want everyone to think that younger people all feel entitled and they should just go online and demand stuff, and then if they don't get what they want, they can they flame and then they disappear. And yes, that happens. The three of us see that happening all the time. I just think there may be a disconnect between the perception of being self-employed and the reality of being self-employed.
Absolutely. And you mentioned influencers, and apparently I was watching a video, and being an influencer is like the top desired occupation of kids today. It's like something like 50%. And but they don't understand that less than 10% of influencers make a livable income. So it's a huge false perception and misconception about, they see the fun, they see the cool, the potential of doing something that you're passionate about and getting paid for it. But it's just they have no idea. These people are easily working 50, 60, maybe 70 hours a week, churning out content, writing blog posts, creating communities, all of that stuff.
And here's the thing on top of all of that stuff is, then when we were growing up, we were told, you stay in school, you get good grades. Go to high school, get good grades. Get into college, get good grades. Graduate, find an internship, get a good job, work there from age 21 to 65, get your gold watch, wait to die, and there will be a big fat pension waiting for you, and you'll be able to afford to buy a house and buy a car, squeeze out some kids, and save for their college. That is not true anymore for 80 to 90% of the population. Our socioeconomic and political culture has made it such that if you want to go to college to get a useless degree, because you may get replaced by AI 5 minutes after you graduate, but you're going to be $500,000 in debt. So you'll never be able to buy a car. You'll never be able to move out of your parents' house. You can't afford your own health insurance and all of these other things that previous generations, just based on cost of living, controlled inflation, consumer price indexes, GDP, and all the other grown-up economic stuff that I don't know well enough to be able to articulate, set us up for success. And that is just not true anymore. So if all of these doors have been closed by socioeconomic factors, yeah, of course they're going to look at being an influencer or being a voice actor, because the alternative is to be in debt forever and get a degree that may get you nowhere, and you won't be able to move out of your house or buy nice stuff.
Sounds promising.
A gamble or a broken American dream?
So
well, and the American dream is allowed to change, but the way we've been told what the American dream is, but then all the tools our previous generations had to achieve the American dream were either broken, rusted, or taken away from us. So, that's why we have these problems. And so many are attracted to the voiceover industry. And, I will never tell anyone, or I'll never tell any of my VO Strategist students not to pursue their dreams. But my job is to help them understand the reality of themselves, the reality of the voiceover industry as currently constituted, and what their relationship is or could be to the voiceover industry, so I can give them the tools to give themselves the best shot to achieve their definition of success.
So to that end, let's talk about the steps to a potentially successful voiceover career. Are they the same as they were 8 to 10 years ago? Have they changed? What, in your mind, are the best ways to set yourself up for success in VO today?
It's interesting because it's changed, but it stayed the same. And there's two influences. One is technological, shockingly, and one is, sociopolitical, shockingly. To be a successful voice actor in today's age is to be better than AI. You need to be a better storyteller than AI. And AI is getting better and better every day. I've been telling my students about what I call the relevance gap. The relevance gap is, okay, here are these voice actors, people over here who want to be voice actors. Then there's the relevance gap between them, and the other side of it is all the successful voice actors and all the voiceover opportunities that these aspiring voice actors want. Now, this relevance gap, I believe, is growing. The gap is widening. Why is it widening? It's widening because AI is taking away, for lack of a better term, entry-level jobs, entry-level voiceover work that the less talented and the people that have less opportunities or access to opportunities are going to be able to get their hands on. We're talking low-budget work on Fiverr, Upwork, Voices.com, Voice123, Backstage, Casting Call Club, Twitter, Discord servers, subreddits, and so on. That work is slowly being eaten up by synthesized voices. So you have, and also you both know, it takes a lot of money up front to be able to effectively invest in a voiceover career because you need training. You need a home recording studio. You need to produce a demo. You need to build a website. And this stuff could cost, over a period of a couple years, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 possibly.
Absolutely.
So, and if the other influences that younger generations have less money, college degrees are worth less than they used to, they'd have that much less capital to be able to invest in a burgeoning voiceover career than you or I did 8 to 30 years ago.
I had kind of a revelation. Sorry to interrupt, but I was teaching a university level podcast class, and one of the assignments was about a home studio setup. And so I gave them an assignment like, what would you have now based on your current resources? And what would be your pie in the sky equipment? And nobody, even for the pie in the sky stuff, people still weren't spending more than like $200. So it's just like, and it makes me think, like, cringe at how much I've spent on this career over the years. But again, it's just people are so like, they don't have the confidence to invest more, to think big. And you kind of have to have that leap of faith in order to pursue this.
And it's funny because the aforementioned cartoon and video game voice actors, they are dreaming big. They just don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of.
And they can't even see that on the horizon as well.
And they can't even see that to be able to get the training and equipment that they need to get to their big dream. So it's a challenge for everybody. I do not envy those who are trying to get into the voiceover industry right now. But to go back to your original question, Paul, is like, what do you need? You need to be a good storyteller and be a good storyteller than the AI, like I said before, which means if you want to even consider voice acting, you need to either get theater training, film training, improv training, opera training, or stand-up comedy training. Any one of those 5, preferably more than one of those 5, to develop your storytelling potential And taking those classes will let you know if you have any storytelling potential, because if you don't even try voiceover, because if you can't even get your foundation of storytelling skills in place, you're not going to have any chance of being a voice actor.
And that kind of circling back to what we were saying, like the perception that this is so easy because we speak naturally. It's something we do every day. But people don't understand. This is about being a professional communicator and storyteller, which is not something that everyone does naturally.
No. What's extra interesting is I see so often on the subreddits people posting stuff saying, I don't want to sound like myself. How can I sound like somebody else?
Ooh.
Another misconception. And I was just like, no. And I mean, it goes back to what, like that little tip of the iceberg that people see. Like they see all those memorable actors who can do a dozen voices or 100 voices, and they want to do that. But it is a very, very small subset of what's actually being asked for. Yeah, it's great to be versatile and have a handful of voices you can pull out on a whim, but the majority of the work you do is in your own voice.
Yeah. And, I had that misconception too when I started out because I thought I needed to sound like James Earl Jones.
Well, why would
And I don't sound like James Earl Jones. I will never I still sound like I'm 19 trying to get served at a bar.
You and me both.
But when I started doing cost-benefit analysis of my voiceover business and discovered that the vast majority of my work was e-learning narration, guess what? If James Earl Jones were alive today, he couldn't do e-learning.
Turn to page 42.
Like, you'd be so enamored with the quality of his voice that you'd be ignoring the content.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be like me, who's just talentless enough that you can listen to me and not get swept up by my mellifluous tones. I can't even say mellifluous, so that tells you something too.
Yeah, I was struggling with that the other day too. I forget why I was saying it, but I couldn't get it
Why
out.
were you saying mellifluous? Like, what's going on in your voiceover world?
I don't remember. It might have been on the podcast, actually, but...
Okay, well, that's fine then. People say mellifluous all the time on podcasts.
So one other point that I wanted to bring up, like all of the training that's involved, and another reason, especially for people who aspire to those higher tiers, one thing I'm noticing we were talking about how the bottom end work is getting devoured by AI. I'm seeing the top end work, and this is animation, video games, even commercials, is like they're casting on camera talent way more often than they used to. And granted, this has always been part and parcel of the industry, but it just seems way more prevalent and obvious now for whatever reason. If Kevin Hart and Chris Pratt and Ryan Reynolds are doing like, what's that?
Matthew McConaughey,
if they're all doing commercial ads, what about the rest of us?
Well, here's the thing about that, Sean, is there's a difference between a voice actor and a celebrity endorser.
Oh, good point.
Morgan Freeman, one could argue Morgan Freeman is not a voice actor. He is a gifted actor, Academy Award nominated actor who happens to do voiceover. So the question is, if Morgan Freeman was not an Academy Award nominated movie star, would he get as much voiceover work? The answer is no. Could Morgan Freeman have a thriving voiceover career? Absolutely. But he's a celebrity. There's also Hollywood and, ad agencies and marketing firms and corporations have become exponentially more risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
That's why if you go look at last year's top movies, I think all of them were sequels except for Wicked. They're either sequels or reboots or something like that of franchises because they're terrified in putting more than $3 in a movie that isn't going to make $1 billion.
Wow.
And only 3 movies did make $1 billion last year, which is also interesting for a whole other set of reasons. So, but the thing about that, Sean, is like those gigs, we are never going to get those gigs. They're not for us. They're for celebrity endorsers. So I don't get bunged up when I see, high-end, comedians like Kevin Hart or whatever, or actors like Morgan Freeman or Sam Elliott, Coors, or, doing that sort of stuff. Because I don't think we were ever up for those gigs. You know what I mean? But also, they're never going to be up for an explainer video or an e-learning module. That's our stuff.
Yeah. I let those go unless it's an audition I remember. Like, I remember specifically a couple of years ago, I had this audition for Checkers from an agent. And I thought I did great. And then 2 months later, it's David Alan Grier. And I thought, well, how am I going to compete with David Alan Grier, who's a Hollywood actor? So I usually let it go unless it's something I remember actually auditioning for, and then I get a little pissy.
Well, I have a story about that. Is that years ago I auditioned to be the voice of Marmaduke in the Marmaduke movie, and the casting spec was they wanted a Seth Rogen sound. So I, watched snippets of Pineapple Express and Knocked Up and stuff. Worked on my goofy, stoner, whatever.
That's pretty
good. Thank you. And was that a good laugh? Was that okay?
That was good.
Pretty close.
Thank you. And I auditioned for it. Didn't hear anything. Months later, the movie came out. Marmaduke starring the voice of Owen Wilson. So they went from...
You probably already had him in mind.
So they went from stoner Jew to stoner cowboy.
Yeah. Yeah, a little different.
And I'm like, what? So, did I have any, illusions that I was going to get this gig? No, but, a boy can dream. And I auditioned for it. So clearly, I was in the running. I mean, or something. I don't know. Maybe I was just backfill for they wanted a certain number of voices to be considered, because that is something that happens in casting. But I can't sweat that. And also, we have no control over the decision making or casting process. To want a Seth Rogen. I mean, maybe Seth Rogen was just busy that month. Maybe his schedule just didn't line up.
Yeah.
Or Owen's manager made a really good pitch. I mean, we have no idea.
The other one that always gets me is Jersey Mike's. Because I was getting those auditions for years, like dozens of times. I would get it from a different agent saying, we're looking for the new voice of Jersey Mike's. You could be for TV, radio. And then after all those auditions, it was the same guy for like 8 years. And then finally this year, or the last 2 years, they cast Danny DeVito. And I was like, that's perfect. Why would you do anything else but Danny DeVito for Jersey Mike's? He's the perfect fit. Completely wasted their time for years doing those auditions.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. And either that was an agent or manager who said, oh, he'd be perfect for this, or somebody in the office like, who'd be perfect for this? And they're like, Danny DeVito. And they're like, oh, my God. Yeah. Because you're right. He's perfect. Perfect for that sort of thing. Because a lot of the celebrity endorsers for various products and services are kind of interchangeable. Mm-hmm. Like Kevin Hart doing Chase Bank. He does a great job. He's funny. I love him. I love his stand-up. But it's just like any comedian could do that. You could just plug in Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah.
Or whoever else. But like Danny DeVito for Jersey Mike's, it's like, yeah. You could probably count on 3 fingers the amount of other celebrities that would be like just right for that.
Have you seen
that would be willing to do it, and that would be within their budget.
Yeah. Have you seen that most recent one where there's a kid moving into college and Danny DeVito's in the dorm already wearing a shirt that says sub, like it's a fraternity, but it's Sigma Upsilon Beta. And the parents say, I don't know, John, introduce to your new roommate. And he says, Mom, it's Danny DeVito. Like he's not even pretending to be somebody else. It's just him doing it. It's just perfect.
I only got a couple of years left on this planet, so I'm going to get real weird.
All right, so shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about getting work, because someone this week was talking about how they weren't seeing the same level of auditions on one of the big casting sites. I don't remember if it was voices.com or Voice123, but they were saying how their auditions basically just dropped off a cliff. And I'm wondering if online casting is still a vital part of getting jobs, and if not, why?
Paul, let me tell you something. I am so tired of the myth that is online casting sites. And here's why. Agents, managers, casting directors, free online casting sites, pay-to-play casting sites, production companies, recording studios, ad agencies, marketing firms, explainer video companies, audiobook publishers, all the different entities, they are all booked as a result of using lead generation tools. Agents are a lead generation tool. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Pay-to-play sites are a lead generation tool. Yes?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Cold calls is a lead generation tool. So is the cold email. So are blogs. So are social media. But all these jerk faces on Facebook with their own mystifying agenda keeps trying to put everything in different buckets and silos and then judging them and then wagging their finger at them. This is the most unproductive, dumbass thing that I see online in a voiceover social, on social media context. Casting sites are more viable than ever. Why? 80% of voiceover work is non-union. Almost 100% of voiceover work on casting sites are non-union. Production companies who can't be bothered with the deluge of crappy emails from all these COVID aspiring voice actors with their crappy demos and their crappy marketing, they can just set up their spam filters so they can just ignore all that stuff and post their casting notice on a pay-to-play site. Agents are deluged every day with in their submission forms and emails with crappy voiceovers and their crappy email and all of that stuff. And you know what? They're sick of it too. Everybody's sick of it. Too many crappy voice actors screwing around. But if you have talent, training, equipment, and all this stuff, and you have a real, true understanding of the voiceover industry, you can look at an online casting site and say, that is a lead generation tool. And instead of sending out 562,000 cold emails a day to production companies that are probably on pay-to-play sites anyway, you can just use these casting sites as a lead generation tool. And yes, Voices.com's terms of service does not let you go off-site, but 90% of Voice123 voice seekers operate off-site, so they don't have to eat the 9% escrow fee. So what's the difference between me doing all these cold emails and then somebody saying, hey, I've got an audition for you, or posting your profile in Voice123 and someone emailing you and saying, hey, I've got an audition for you? What is the difference?
Yeah, I guess there isn't one.
There is not one, but people have these bizarre agendas to try to tell you how to be an ethical voice actor, whatever the hell that means. So
really,
this
it's
argument
an investment of like money for a subscription for something that does this for you, or an investment in time to do the same thing yourself. So
right,
It's
exactly.
a really fresh perspective, Tom. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And you should be direct marketing. You should be cold calling and cold emailing. You should be doing things to demonstrate your value and progress to stay top of mind when a casting opportunity comes along for those companies and decision makers that are not using representation and not using online casting sites. There's a time and place to use all of these things. But when these ignoramus, plural of ignoramus?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that right?
Yep. It is.
Keep saying
ignoramuses.
Ignoramuses. Keep saying that online casting sites are only for bottom feeders and predators. They keep you on the site. This algorithm is unsolvable. That is all a crock. Because I'm on Voice123. I pay the $2,200 thing every year for a few years, and I've made at least $12,000 to $15,000 every year. And I'm auditioning regularly. And guess what? Actors audition. I don't care where the audition comes from, as long as they are good auditions for good projects with pay that is commensurate with the industry standard from ethical companies that are going to pay me well and pay me on time. I don't care where the source is. So why should anybody else?
There you go. Makes sense. So to sort of put a bow on this topic of where the industry is headed, Tom, where do you think the voiceover industry is headed? Will it even be here in 5 years? And if so, what will it look like?
There will always be a demand for human artists to express themselves, to realize other people's creations. 100%. How much voiceover work there will be for human voice actors to do live, narration from their own vocal folds remains to be seen, which is why I have cloned my voice 4 times, because I am doing everything to position myself to get voiceover work that that decision makers have decided not to use humans for. And if I make an ethically sourced synthesized voice, where our good friend Rob Siglampaglia has reviewed the contract and says, yes, your IP is protected, and I can have a passive income stream over here while I continue to be the theater-trained, experienced artist over there, we're good. I do think there will be less voice actors in the industry. I think that they will be higher quality, better trained, more patient, more consistent working voice artists. It's also possible that the rates may go up, because if there are less voice actors around, then, just the law of economics of supply and demand may come in, because there will always be humans wanting humans to say crap out loud. And if there's just less of us around, our time and our attention is just going to be worth more. Now, yeah, am I foolishly optimistic with that? Maybe.
I was going to say an optimistic view. Get out of here. But
yeah, heaven forbid that we're not all a bunch of nihilists about the whole thing. But yeah, if you have good training and you're doing good work and you understand how the industry changes and evolves and adapts, and you change and evolve and adapt with it, I think the people that are going to stay in the voiceover industry are going to be fine.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. It actually made me feel better because I started this session basically full of piss and vinegar, and your optimism has encouraged me. So thank you.
Well, it's sort of been articulating some things that I've been pontificating about, since we're all throwing around $300 words. But anyways, I think it's sort of, voice acting used to be sort of like the entertainment industry secret. Not a lot of people knew about it. Not a lot of people did it professionally. And we had this huge explosion over the last 3 decades, but I feel like it really is going to shrink as it becomes more difficult to be or to have the talent and skill required to give what's asked for. And like you said, to just be almost like more of a boutique service rather than something that is so commonplace. And honestly, I don't mind some of the super dry, boring projects being eaten up by AI. So that is a really refreshing, optimistic look. I'm going to pull my head out of the sand.
Glad I could be of service.
Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure having you back on the show. You might be the most featured guest on the podcast after this appearance.
Wow, I'm honored.
Because we've had you on pretty much every conference we've all been attending. And then this will be your second individual interview. So congratulations.
Wow. I look forward to receiving my plaque in the mail.
We'll work on that.
Do you like silver or platinum? But anyway.
I'm a palladium man myself.
Ooh, fancy. Before you go, Tom, anything you want to promote? Any fun events or webinars you have coming up?
Oh, absolutely. My dear friend Nadia Marshall and I have created a micro course called the Voiceover Marketing Intensive. It's 16 micro videos that teach lessons about lead generation to find voiceover clients and then how to market to those clients. So you can go to vostrategist.com and all the links are there.
Very
Amazing.
Cool. We had Nadia on a couple of months ago. She's great.
She is.
Congratulations on that. Well, Tom, thanks again for being here, and best of luck in the future with your VO career.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on as always. It's great to talk to you.
Our pleasure, Tom. Thanks for all the laughs.
How many times has this happened to you? You're listening to the radio when this commercial comes on, not unlike this one, and this guy starts talking, not unlike myself.
Or maybe it's a woman that starts talking, not unlike myself, and you think to yourself, geez, I could do that.
Well, mister, well, missy, you just got one step closer to realizing your dream as a voiceover artist, because now there's Global Voice Acting Academy. All the tools and straight-from-the-hip, honest information you need to get on a fast track to doing this commercial yourself.
Well, not this one exactly.
Classes, private coaching, webinars, home studio setup, marketing and branding help, members-only benefits like workouts, rate and negotiation advice, practice scripts, and more. All without the kind of hype you're listening to right now. Go ahead, take our jobs from us. We dare you.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I like what I do.
And you will too when you're learning your craft at Global Voice Acting Academy. Find us at globalvoiceacademy.com.
Because you like to have fun.
So thank you to Tom for being on the show again. As we said, we think he's the most featured guest on the show at this point because he's had 2 solo episodes and been on at almost every conference we've attended. So we always appreciate Tom's wisdom. Happy to have him back on the show and has some great insights.
Yeah, hasn't run out of stuff to talk about yet. So... And like I said, I just love all of his philosophy about the importance of investing in yourself. Like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, a lot of people shortchange their progress because they're not willing to do any kind of investment, right? Like don't let analysis paralysis stop you from what you want to do. If there's a local or an affordable class that you can do to learn about this stuff, do it, right? Learn about that stuff and then make a decision. All right, this is really fun. The passion's still there. I'm going to invest in another class. Or, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to drop $20K on this passion project all at once. It can be a workshop here, a training session there, a USB mic here, an upgrade there, So take your time with this. So again, be patient with yourself. But if you don't start, you're never going to start, right? So, you might not fail, but you definitely won't succeed.
And look for ways to get help that may be local or even blasts from the past. I had a conversation this morning with a fraternity brother who said he's listened to all of our podcast episodes and is interested in getting into VO, doesn't have any experience yet, but he was so appreciative of the work you and I did that helped him get started. And I was like, oh, that's so cool to hear. So then we had a longer conversation because it's an old friend from 30 years ago. And I'm going to help him listen to some recordings. And then I encourage him to sign up for a membership with GVAA so he can pursue it further.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the shout out.
My pleasure. So that pretty much wraps up this episode of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress.
We've got a slew of cool guests coming up. Our next featured guest will be Kara O'Brien, who is a voice actor and professional singer that I met at VO Atlanta. No, Uncle Roy's for the first time. Then at VO Atlanta, she and I sang a duet that I butchered and she did great at. She's going to talk to us about the convergence of singing and voiceover. And after that, we have Nikki Zaycox, who is Audie nominated. I'm not sure if she's won. I should probably figure that out, but we will before the show. But she's a great audiobook narrator and part of the three amigas, I like to call them, between Stephanie Nemeth Parker and Amanda Stribling, who we had on a few weeks ago. The three of them actually sent me a message from the Audies. They were in their hotel room getting their hair done, and they said that they were the hairdresser was listening to an audiobook, and it was called Think and Grow Rich, this old public domain book by Napoleon Hill. And they said, oh, let us hear. And it turned out it was me. It was the version I did. So Amanda sent me a picture saying, oh my God, we're listening to your audiobook right now. We're getting our hair done for the Audies. So that was really cool. But anyway, Nikki is the third of the triumvirate of that group of excellent audiobook narrators, and she'll be on after Kara. So look forward to both of those interviews.
Very, very cool. Well, that's all we got this time, everybody. You'll hear us in the next one. Thanks for listening to this episode of the VO Meter. To follow along, visit us at www.vometer.com.
We'd also love to hear your comments or suggestions for the show. Or if you have a questionable gear purchase, tell us all about it on our Facebook page or on Twitter at the VO Meter.